The rooftop smelled like expensive wine and fake laughter. I didn't want to be here. Mara had insisted, the way she always insisted on things that made her look good and made me feel like furniture. The party was some networking thing for her marketing firm, all glass barriers and city lights, people in clothes that cost more than my truck payment. Music pulsed from hidden speakers, something electronic and meaningless, the kind of soundtrack designed to fill space without demanding attention. I stood near the edge, watching her work the crowd. That's what she called it. Working. Like relationships were transactions. Maybe they were. To her. The wind-up here carried the scent of jasmine from the potted plants arranged strategically around the space. Someone had spent real money making this rooftop look effortless. Everything curated. Everything intentional, including the guest list. She touched arms when she talked, leaned in, laughed at jokes that weren't funny. I'd seen it 1,000 times, but tonight something felt different. Sharper. Like watching a play where you suddenly realize the actors have been signaling to each other the whole time and you're the only one who didn't know there was a second script. The city spread out below us, lights stretching to the horizon. From up here, everything looked clean, organized, no hint of the decay underneath, the structural problems that only became visible when you looked closer. That's what I did for a living. Look closer. Caleb, right? A woman appeared next to me, holding a martini. You're Mara's husband. Guilty, I said. She talks about you, the woman said, and something in her tone made my stomach drop. Not warmth, not affection, something else. Something that felt like pity wrapped in social courtesy. Good things, I hope. Oh, you know Mara. She smiled and drifted away before I could ask what that meant. Her perfume lingered, something floral and too strong, mixing with the wine-soaked air. I watched my wife across the space, 30 feet away, surrounded by people who hung on her words. She was good at this. Always had been. Event marketing was perfect for her because she understood what people wanted to believe about themselves. She sold them the fantasy, made them feel special, made them feel seen. She'd done that for me once, years ago, before the job became her identity and I became the accessory that proved she could have both career and marriage. I was a commercial building inspector. I looked at foundations and load-bearing walls and made sure things wouldn't collapse. Different skill set, less glamorous, but useful in its own way. Someone had to make sure the beautiful buildings everyone admired wouldn't cave in during the first storm. Mara caught my eye and waved, not a real wave, a performance wave. See, I have a husband. See how normal I am. See how I balance it all. I lifted my beer bottle slightly. Didn't smile. The bottle was still mostly full. I'd been holding it for 40 minutes, taking small sips, staying alert, while everyone around me got progressively looser with their words and their boundaries. Her expression flickered, just for a second. Confusion, maybe, or irritation that I wasn't playing my part correctly. Then the mask came back, perfect and impenetrable, and she turned to say something to the man beside her that made him throw his head back in exaggerated laughter. That's when I noticed him. Tall guy, maybe 38, expensive suit that actually fit. Not off the rack. Tailored, the kind where someone measured every angle of your body and constructed fabric around it like architecture. Standing too close to a blonde woman who kept laughing and touching his chest. But he wasn't looking at her, he was looking at Mara, and Mara was looking back. It wasn't the looking that got me. People look, attraction exists. I understood that. It was the familiarity in it, the timing. She'd glance over, he'd glance over, their eyes would meet for exactly 2 seconds, then both would turn away like nothing happened. Synchronized, practiced, the kind of choreography that only comes from repetition. I'm observant. It's literally my job. I notice when things don't line up, when weight distribution is off, when someone's hiding structural damage behind fresh paint. I can look at a building and see the flaws no one else notices, the micro cracks that'll become major problems, the shortcuts that'll cause failures down the line. This was structural damage. I moved closer, slowly, keeping to the edges of conversations. Nobody paid attention to me. I was good at being invisible at these things. Mara liked it that way. She could shine brighter when I stayed in the shadows. I'd accepted that role years ago, told myself it was fine, that marriages worked differently for everyone. Now I wondered what else I'd been telling myself that wasn't actually true. The tall guy was talking to someone about property development, real estate, flipping houses in the suburbs. His voice carried across the rooftop, confident and loud, the kind of guy who thought volume equaled authority. He gestured with his drink, almost spilling it, laughing at his own stories. Dylan Kessler, someone called him. I filed the name away in the same mental space where I kept lists of code violations and permit requirements. Dylan Kessler, Real estate developer. A man who looked at my wife like they shared secrets. Mara was holding court near the bar now, telling some story about a corporate event she'd managed. Her audience was eating it up. She glanced toward Dylan again. He smiled, just slightly, and turned back to his conversation. I watched this happen 3 more times in 15 minutes. Then things got interesting. Someone brought out champagne. Toasts started happening. Mara had drunk enough that her laugh was getting louder, her gestures bigger. She was in her element, the center of attention, and she was riding that high. "Speech," someone called out. "Oh God, no," Mara said, but she was already moving toward the center of the space. She loved this, loved being asked, loved pretending she didn't want it. She raised her glass. Okay, just a quick one." The crowd quieted. I stayed where I was, 20 feet back, near the railing. "I just want to say," Mara started, "how grateful I am for all of you. This industry, this community, you all get it. You understand that life is about connections, about being open to possibilities, about not limiting yourself to old, outdated ideas about how things should be." A few people nodded. Someone said, "Hear, hear." Mara's eyes were bright. Too bright. "I mean, I'm in an open marriage. You can find someone too." The words hung in the air. The rooftop went quiet. Not polite quiet, shocked quiet. I watched people's faces change. Confusion, discomfort, a few nervous laughs. Someone whispered something to the person next to them. Mara was still smiling, holding her glass up, waiting for affirmation that wasn't coming. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Something else. Clarity. She'd said it in front of everyone. On purpose. Either she was too far gone to realize what she'd done, or she wanted to make a point. Either way, she just handed me something. I stepped forward. "Great," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. My voice cut through the uncomfortable silence like a blade through drywall. "I'll take your sister." The silence got deeper, heavier, the kind of silence that has weight to it, that presses down on everyone in the space. Someone's glass clinked against a table, the sound unnaturally loud. The music kept playing. Oblivious, electronic beats that suddenly felt obscene. Mara's face went white, then red, blood rushing to her cheeks, visible even in the dim rooftop lighting. Her eyes found mine across the space, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I saw genuine emotion, fear, calculation, panic. The mask cracking in real time. People started looking around, trying to figure out who was supposed to laugh first, waiting for someone to signal that this was a joke, that we were all in on it, that everything was still okay. Nobody did. "Caleb," Mara said, her voice tight, strained. The sound of someone trying to maintain control while everything slips away. She took a step toward me, one hand extended like she might physically pull the words back into my mouth. "What?" I kept my tone light. Conversational, like we were discussing weekend plans or where to get dinner. "You said open marriage. I'm just embracing the possibilities. Isn't that what you wanted? Openness? Honesty?" Someone coughed. Someone else put down their glass with exaggerated care, the kind of deliberate movement people make when they're pretending not to be paying attention while recording every detail. "Where is Lena anyway?" I asked, scanning the crowd with genuine curiosity. She said she might stop by. Would have been perfect timing for this conversation. "She's not here," Mara said quickly, too quickly. The words tumbling out before she could stop them. Shame. I took a drink of my beer, letting the moment breathe, letting everyone absorb what had just happened. Would have been good to get her input. You know, since apparently we're all making major relationship decisions in public spaces now. Dylan Kessler was staring at me now. Really staring. Not the casual glances from before. This was assessment. This was a man trying to figure out if I was a threat. I looked right back at him, held his gaze, didn't blink. He looked away first. Mara recovered fast. I'd give her that. She laughed, loud and forced. "Oh my God, Caleb, you're so literal. I was obviously joking." "Were you?" I asked. She didn't answer. Just turned to the crowd and started talking again. Something about how her husband was hilarious and didn't know when to quit. But the damage was done. The party had shifted. People were whispering, looking at us both differently. I stayed for another 20 minutes just to make a point. Then I set my empty bottle on a table and walked toward the exit. "Caleb, wait." Mara caught up with me near the elevator, her hand on my arm. What the actual hell was that? I looked at her hand, then at her face. "You told a room full of people we're in an open marriage." I was being funny. Social commentary. You know how these things go. "Do I?" You're making this into something it's not. What is it then? She opened her mouth, closed it. Her eyes darted back toward the party, toward where Dylan was still visible through the glass. We'll talk at home, she said finally. Sure, I said. We'll talk. But I already knew we wouldn't. Not really, because talking implies both people are interested in the truth, and Mara had stopped being interested in truth a long time ago. I took the elevator down alone. On the street, I stood in the cold air and looked up at the building. Through the windows, I could see the party continuing, see Mara's silhouette moving through the crowd, see Dylan standing near the bar. My phone buzzed. Text message, unknown number. She lies like she thinks everyone else is too dumb to notice. I stared at the message, read it twice, then I saved the number and got in my truck. The night had just gotten more interesting. I didn't go home right away. I drove around for an hour, letting my mind process what had just happened. Not the public humiliation, though that was real enough. The other thing, the pattern I'd seen, the looks between Mara and Dylan Kessler, the synchronized choreography of two people who'd spent time learning each other's rhythms. The streets were mostly empty at this hour. Past midnight now, the city settling into its nighttime patterns. Traffic lights cycling through their sequences for nobody. Streetlights casting orange pools on wet pavement. It had rained earlier, and the asphalt reflected everything back in distorted mirror images. I stopped at a diner off Highway 55, one of those 24-hour places that smelled like coffee and cleaning products and resignation, the kind of place where people came when they had nowhere else to go or nothing else to do. I slid into a booth near the window and ordered coffee I didn't drink and just sat there, watching the parking lot and thinking, letting the pieces arrange themselves in my mind like a building schematic. Facts. That's what mattered. Not emotions, not assumptions. Facts. I pulled out my phone and started making a list. Not of accusations, of observable data points. Things I could document. Things that existed independent of my feelings about them. Mara's schedule had been weird for 3 months. Late meetings that ran past midnight. Weekend work trips that came up suddenly, always with vague explanations. Conference calls she took in her car instead of the house, sitting in the driveway for 30 minutes at a time while I watched from the kitchen window and wondered why she needed that much privacy for work conversations. None of that was proof, just data points, anomalies in expected patterns. I pulled up her calendar on my phone. We shared it, theoretically, part of that early marriage optimism about transparency and communication and building a life together. She'd stopped updating it regularly around the same time the weird schedule started, but the old entries were still there, digital fossils preserved in cloud storage. I cross-referenced them with my own calendar, with my work schedule, with the rhythm of our daily lives that I'd been tracking without consciously realizing I was tracking it. There was a pattern, clear as a load-bearing wall on a blueprint. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening for the past 6 weeks, Mara had client dinners, or venue walkthroughs. Every single one happened when I had late inspections or evening certifications. That was interesting. I opened my truck's maintenance app, checked the mileage logs. I'm compulsive about tracking maintenance. Oil changes every 5,000 miles, tire rotations, all of it documented. The truck had averaged 43 miles more per day on Tuesdays and Thursdays than the rest of the week. 43 miles. That was the distance from our house to the commercial district near Riverside, round trip. I finished my coffee and drove home. The house was dark. Mara wasn't back yet. I didn't turn on the lights, just sat in the kitchen and waited. She came in around 1:30, heels in her hand, makeup smeared. "You're still up," she said. "Couldn't sleep." "About earlier." She dropped her purse on the counter. "I'm sorry. That was stupid of me. I'd had too much wine and I wasn't thinking." "You said we're in an open marriage." "I said a lot of things. It was a joke. Everyone knew it was a joke." "Did Dylan Kessler think it was a joke?" Her face went still. "Who?" "The guy you kept looking at. Real estate developer. Loud voice. You know exactly who I'm talking about." "I don't know what you're talking about." "You looked at each other 6 times. I counted." "You're being paranoid." "Am I?" She sighed, the kind of sigh that's meant to make me feel unreasonable. "Caleb, I'm exhausted. Can we not do this tonight?" "Do what?" "This. The interrogation, the weirdness. I made a dumb comment at a party and you made it worse by bringing up my sister, which was incredibly inappropriate, by the way. Can we just let it go?" "Where were you Tuesday night?" "What?" "Tuesday. You said you had a client dinner. Where was it?" "I don't remember. Somewhere downtown." "What client?" "Some tech startup. Look, I don't remember every single meeting." "What about Thursday?" "Caleb, seriously, what is this?" Just answer the question. No. She grabbed her purse. I'm not doing this. You're being crazy and controlling, and I'm going to bed. She walked past me toward the bedroom. I didn't follow. I sat in the dark kitchen for another 20 minutes, then pulled out my phone and looked at the text message again. She lies like she thinks everyone else is too dumb to notice. I typed back, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared. Then, "You know who, we should talk. Not tonight. Soon. Lena, Mara's younger sister, the one I'd mentioned at the party. We'd always gotten along, Lena and I. She was sharper than Mara, less performative. She managed a bar in the arts district and had a way of reading people that made her good at her job. She'd never liked how Mara treated me. Had mentioned it once, years ago, then never brought it up again. Until now. I typed, "Tomorrow. Your place?" 1 p.m. Don't tell her. Wasn't planning on it. I deleted the conversation and went to bed. Mara was already asleep, or pretending to be. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, and started planning. The next morning, Mara left early. Another meeting. Another vague explanation about venue logistics. I had an inspection scheduled at 10, a new construction site in Riverside. 4-story mixed-use building, foundation review and structural integrity check. Routine work. The site was managed by Kessler Development Group. I'd known that when I scheduled it. The permit application had his company's name on it. It was public record. I'd done my homework. Dylan wasn't there when I arrived. Just a foreman and 2 contractors. I did my inspection, checked the load calculations, examined the concrete curing, took photos. Everything was standard except the parking area. The lot behind the building had fresh tire marks, 2 sets, different vehicles. Both had been there multiple times based on the wear patterns in the gravel. One set matched the profile of a mid-size sedan. The other matched a luxury SUV. I knew what Mara drove, had known for years. I also knew she'd mentioned working with clients in this district. I took photos of the tire marks, documented them in my report under site access notation. Completely legitimate. Then I walked around the building one more time. There was a coffee cup in the corner of the lot. Expensive coffee. The kind Mara always got from that place on 4th Street. I photographed that, too. At 1 p.m., I was at Lena's apartment. She lived above the bar she managed, a converted loft with exposed brick and too many plants. "Thanks for coming," she said, letting me in. "Thanks for texting." She poured 2 glasses of water and sat across from me at her kitchen table. "How much do you know?" I know she's lying about her schedule. I know there's a pattern. I know Dylan Kessler exists, and she knows him better than she's admitting. Lena nodded slowly. She's been seeing him for 4 months. The confirmation hit differently than I expected. Not shock, just a settling, like a door closing. "How do you know?" She told me. Not directly, but she told me. Lena looked tired. She came to the bar one night about 3 months ago, late, drunk. Started talking about how marriage was a social construct and how people should be allowed to have needs and how she'd met someone who understood her better than you ever could. She said that. Yeah. Then she told me to keep it quiet because you wouldn't understand. Because you're too traditional, too conventional, too stuck in your ways. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Traditional. That's great. I told her she was being selfish and cruel. She got mad, said I was jealous, said you and I were both living in the past. Lena took a drink of water. We haven't talked much since then. That's why I wasn't at the party last night. But you heard what happened. Friend of a friend texted me. Said Mara made some insane announcement and you shut her down hard. Lena almost smiled. Wish I'd been there for that. It felt good. I bet. We sat there for a minute. Then Lena said, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. You should leave her. She doesn't deserve you." "Maybe." I looked at the water glass. Or maybe I should make sure she understands what she did first. What does that mean? I'm not sure yet. Lena studied me. Be careful. Mara's not as smart as she thinks she is, but she's connected. She knows people. So do I. Different kind of people. Exactly. I left her apartment 20 minutes later with more information than I'd arrived with. Lena had given me names, places, patterns. She hadn't wanted to, called it gossip. But she'd done it anyway, and I knew why. She was tired of watching her sister get away with things. I drove to a library and used their computers to pull property records. Kessler Development Group owned 17 properties in the county. 8 were residential flips, 5 were commercial, 4 were vacant lots. 1 was a warehouse conversion near the industrial park. Recently renovated. New security system. Private parking. I wrote down the address. That night, Mara came home with takeout and acted like everything was normal. She asked about my day, told me about hers, made jokes about people at her office. I played along, ate the food, laughed at the appropriate moments. When she went to shower, I checked her phone. She'd left it on the counter, unlocked. Careless. The messages were all surface level, nothing incriminating. But there was a deleted conversation thread. I could see the gap in the timestamps, something removed recently. She'd gotten sloppy, too comfortable. That was going to be her biggest mistake. Sunday morning, Mara left for a supposed brunch with coworkers. She kissed my cheek on the way out, told me she'd be back by 3, and drove off in her sedan. "Have fun," I said, watching her through the kitchen window as she backed out of the driveway. She was wearing the blue dress, the expensive one, too nice for brunch with coworkers. I waited 15 minutes, then followed. She didn't go to any restaurant. She drove straight to the warehouse district, pulled into the converted building I'd researched, and parked near the back entrance. I stayed 2 blocks away, engine running, watching. Dylan Kessler's SUV was already there. Black Range Rover, custom wheels, tinted windows, the kind of vehicle that screamed money and insecurity in equal measure. They were inside for 90 minutes. I sat there the entire time, drinking gas station coffee that had gone cold, making notes on my phone. Arrival time, duration, weather conditions, everything documented like an inspection report. At 11:40, they emerged separately. Dylan first, checking his phone, looking around the empty lot like a man who thought he was being careful, but wasn't. Mara, 5 minutes later, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky, walking quickly to her car. Neither of them noticed my truck 2 blocks away. I didn't need to see more. I'd confirmed what I already knew. Now I needed to decide what to do about it. I drove home and sat in the garage with the engine off, thinking. The concrete floor was stained with oil in patterns that looked almost intentional. Water damage on the back wall from last winter's freeze, small cracks spreading from the corners. Nothing catastrophic yet, but the kind of thing you addressed before it became a real problem, like a marriage built on lies. My phone rang. Lena. "You got a minute?" she asked. "Yeah. What's up?" "Can we meet? I have more information." "About Mara?" "About everything. There's stuff you need to know." We agreed to meet at a coffee shop in neutral territory, halfway between her bar and my house, someplace public where neither of us would be recognized. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from her at a corner table, 2 untouched lattes between us. "She came by the bar last night," Lena said. "Late, after you left the party. She was a mess." "What did she say?" "That you humiliated her, that you're trying to control her, that you've always been jealous of her success." Lena stirred her coffee without drinking it. The usual manipulation script, making herself the victim. "Did she mention Dylan?" "Not by name, but she said she'd met someone who understood her, someone who saw her potential, someone who didn't make her feel small." I laughed, couldn't help it. "I make her feel small." "That's what she said. I told her she was full of it, that you've supported her career for 8 years while she treated you like background furniture." Lena looked at me directly. That's when she got angry, said I didn't understand, that I was jealous because I'd never had a successful relationship. That must have gone over well. I kicked her out, told her not to come back until she could be honest with herself about what she's doing. "Think she will be?" "No." Lena took a sip of coffee finally. "She's too far gone. She's rewritten the whole history in her head. You're the villain now. Dylan's the hero. She's the misunderstood protagonist." "People believe their own stories." "Yeah, they do." She pulled out her phone, scrolled through something, then slid it across the table. "But here's the thing. She's not as smart as she thinks she is." I looked at the screen. Text messages. A conversation between Mara and someone named Jessica. "Who's Jessica?" I asked. "Dylan's ex-wife. She reached out to me through a mutual friend, wanted me to know what kind of man my sister was involved with." I read the messages. They were damning. Dylan had cheated on Jessica 3 times during their marriage, always with women connected to his business deals, always with the same pattern: attention, promises, then abandonment when things got complicated. "She says he does this," Lena continued, "finds women who can help him professionally, makes them feel special, uses them until he doesn't need them anymore." "Did you tell Mara?" I tried. She said Jessica was bitter and lying. Lena took her phone back. But Jessica also said something else. Dylan's business is in trouble, he's overextended, owes money to investors. The warehouse project is his last chance to stay solvent. That was interesting. Very interesting. How does she know all this? They have kids together. She still sees his financial records through child support proceedings. He's been hiding assets, trying to make it look like he has less money than he does. That's fraud. That's Dylan. We sat there for a minute, processing. Then Lena said, "What are you going to do?" "I'm still figuring that out." "Caleb." She reached across the table, touched my hand. "Be careful. This guy's not just careless. He's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things." "So do building inspectors." She almost smiled. "Fair enough." I left the coffee shop and spent the rest of Sunday planning. Revenge is architecture. You don't just react. You design. You calculate load-bearing points and stress fractures and where to apply pressure so the whole thing comes down exactly how you want it. Mara had humiliated me publicly. She'd lied for months. She'd treated our marriage like a joke while making me look like a fool. Dylan had enabled it, participated in it, thought he was untouchable because he had money and confidence and nice suits. They both needed to understand what they'd actually done. But I wasn't going to do anything illegal, wasn't going to risk my career or my freedom. This had to be clean, precise. The kind of revenge that left no evidence but maximum impact. I spent the rest of Sunday planning, made lists, drew connections, mapped out timelines. Monday morning, I called Frank Ionescu. Frank ran security for half the commercial parking structures in the city. We'd worked together on building inspections, and he owed me a favor from a permit issue I'd helped him resolve last year. Code violation at one of his sites that would have shut down operations. I'd found a workaround that kept things legal and kept him working. "Caleb," he answered on the second ring. "What's up?" "Got a question for you. The warehouse conversion on Industrial Parkway, you handle their security?" "Yeah, Kessler's project. Why?" "Just curious. I'm doing some follow-up inspection work in the area. Wanted to make sure I'm not setting off any alarms." "Nah, that building's weird about access. Owner's got private codes, doesn't want standard monitoring, paid extra for that." "Private codes?" "Yeah, only he and whoever he gives them to can get in and out without triggering notifications. Wanted it that way for client privacy or some nonsense." Frank paused. "Why the interest?" "Just keeping notes. You know how the city is about documentation." "True enough. Hey, while I got you, that inspection you did last month on the Riverside project saved my neck. Found that foundation issue before it became a real problem." That's the job." "Yeah, well, I appreciate it. You need anything, let me know." "Actually," I said, "there is something. You still have contacts at the zoning office?" "My cousin works there. Planning department. Why?" "Dylan Kessler's warehouse. He's got a variance hearing coming up, right?" "Couldn't tell you. That's not my area." "Could you find out, when it's scheduled, what the application status is?" Frank was quiet for a moment. "You working a case on him?" "Just doing due diligence." "Uh-huh." Another pause. "Give me until tomorrow. I'll see what I can find out." "Thanks, Frank." "Yeah, just remember, you didn't hear anything from me." I hung up and added that to my list. Frank would come through. He always did. Tuesday afternoon, I had a scheduled inspection at a property 3 blocks from the warehouse. Legitimate work. But I drove past the warehouse first, slowly, documenting everything. Security cameras at the front entrance, none at the back. Loading dock accessible from the alley. 2 floors, probably residential conversion upstairs, commercial space downstairs. I took photos from my truck, routine documentation for my inspection logs. Then I went to my actual job site and spent 2 hours checking foundation drainage. Wednesday, Lena texted me. "She's planning something. Be ready." "Like what?" "Don't know yet. Just heard her on the phone. Sounded serious." I didn't respond. Just filed it away. Thursday evening, Mara told me she had to work late. Client emergency. She'd be home by midnight. Okay, I said. "You're not going to ask what it's about?" "Would you tell me the truth?" She froze, then forced a smile. "You're still upset about the party." "I'm not upset." "You seem upset." "I'm fine, Mara. Go handle your emergency." She left at 7. I waited 30 minutes, then drove to the warehouse. Both vehicles were there, lights on in the upstairs windows. I sat in my truck 2 blocks away and made phone calls. First call, property management company that handled commercial leases in the area. I told them I was doing an inspection audit and needed to verify emergency access protocols for the warehouse building. They gave me the owner contact information, Dylan Kessler. They also mentioned the building had been flagged for a noise complaint 2 weeks ago. Nothing serious, just something about vehicles coming and going at odd hours. Second call, the city planning office. I asked about pending permits for the warehouse. They told me Kessler had applied for a zoning variance to add residential units. Application was pending. Public hearing scheduled for next month. That was useful. Very useful. I hung up and sat there, watching the building, thinking. Dylan needed that zoning approval. Without it, his conversion project was stuck. With it, he could finish the residential units and sell them for profit. Public hearings meant public scrutiny, meant people would be paying attention. I started drafting an email on my phone, not to send yet, just to have ready. At 9:15, my phone buzzed. Lena. You need to see this. Can you come to the bar? Now? Yeah, now. I drove to the Arts District, parked behind Lena's bar, and went in through the back entrance. She was waiting in her office, laptop open on the desk. What am I looking at? I asked. Mara's Instagram. Check the tags from last month. I leaned over the screen. Mara's account was public, polished, full of carefully curated event photos and aesthetic shots. Very on-brand for her work. Lena scrolled to a photo from 5 weeks ago. Mara at some rooftop venue, champagne glass raised, big smile, standard stuff. But in the background, partially visible, was Dylan Kessler. Same event, same night. She tagged the location, Lena said. But look at the comments. One of them, from a username I didn't recognize, said, Cute couple, glad you two are happy. Mara had replied, LOL, not a couple, just friends. Friends, I said. Yeah, she's been deleting comments like that, but I screenshot them first. Lena pulled up her photo roll, showed me 4 more similar comments on different posts, all deleted, all from the same time period when the pattern started. Why are you showing me this? Because you're planning something, I can tell. And you should know that Mara's not as careful as she thinks she is. She's left breadcrumbs everywhere. You just have to know where to look. I straightened up. Thanks. Caleb. She touched my arm. Whatever you're doing, don't do anything that'll backfire on you. She's not worth it. I know. Do you? I met her eyes. Yeah, I do. I left the bar and drove back to the warehouse. Both vehicles were still there. I sat in my truck and opened my email draft again. Read through it, made adjustments. Then I saved it and drove home. Mara got back at 11:30. She was showered, makeup fresh, acting cheerful. How was the emergency? I asked. Exhausting. Client wanted everything changed last minute. We got it sorted. Good. She looked at me, suspicious. You're being weird. Am I? Yeah, you're too calm. Maybe I'm just tired of being angry. So you're not angry anymore? I shrugged. Does it matter? She didn't answer. Just went to bed. I stayed up until 2 a.m., finalizing the plan. Architecture isn't just about building things up. Sometimes it's about knowing exactly where to apply pressure so everything collapses in the right direction. Mara and Dylan had built their little structure on lies and carelessness. I was about to conduct a very thorough inspection. Friday morning, I scheduled an inspection for the warehouse building. Completely legitimate. The property was on my rotation list for commercial zoning compliance, and with the pending variance hearing, it was actually required. Dylan didn't know it was coming. That was the beauty of routine city work. It just happened. I arrived at 10 a.m. with my inspection kit and official documentation, clipboard, camera, measuring tape, moisture detector, level, all the tools of the trade. The building was locked. I used my city access authorization to enter through the front. Legal, standard procedure. The key worked smoothly, and the door swung open to reveal the downstairs space. The downstairs was empty. Concrete floors, exposed brick, new paint, clean renovation work. Good craftsmanship, actually. Someone knew what they were doing. Nothing to flag here. I took photos anyway, documented the layout, the electrical panels, the plumbing access points. All routine. Upstairs was different. 2 residential units, partially finished. Hardwood floors that smelled like fresh varnish. Modern fixtures still in their plastic wrapping. One unit was empty. The other had furniture in it. A couch, a table, expensive sheets on the bed. Not just staging furniture, the kind of setup that suggested regular use. I took photos, documented everything. Then I noticed the permits posted on the wall, framed behind glass like they were certificates of achievement rather than legal requirements. They were 6 months old, expired. That was a problem, a significant problem. Expired permits meant work done without current authorization. That meant violations. That meant the zoning variance could be delayed or denied. I documented every expired permit, took detailed photos from multiple angles, made notes in my official report, time-stamped and geotagged. Everything by the book. Then I heard a vehicle outside. Engine noise, aggressive acceleration, the sound of someone driving faster than they should in a parking lot. I looked out the window. Dylan's SUV pulling in, tires chirping as he braked too hard. I went back downstairs, calmly, checking my notes one more time. I was standing near the entrance when he walked in. He stopped when he saw me. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, anger. "What the hell are you doing here?" he said. "Building inspection? City requirement?" "You can't just walk into my property." "Actually, I can. It's in the city code. Section 18-12, required compliance inspections for pending zoning applications." I held up my city ID badge. "I have authorization." "You need to schedule that." "Already scheduled. You were sent notification 3 weeks ago." I held up my tablet, showing the official notice. Date stamped, properly filed. "Compliance inspection for pending zoning variance. Went out November 2nd. Electronic notification to the email address on file." His face darkened. "I didn't get any notification." "Went to the email on file. Your business account, kesslerdevelopmentgroup@gmail.com. I don't check that every day. Not my problem." I made another note on my tablet, watching him watch me. "I found some issues upstairs. Expired permits, work completed without current authorization. That's going to delay your variance." "You can't do that." "I'm not doing anything. I'm reporting what I found. You did the work without proper permits. That's on you, not me." He stepped closer. Tried to use his height, his physical presence, the old intimidation playbook. "Listen, there's got to be a way to handle this." "There is. Apply for new permits, wait for approval, go through the proper channels. Probably 3 to 6 months. That's not acceptable." "Then you should have kept your permits current." I looked at him directly, not backing away. "Pretty basic stuff. Any competent developer would know that." His jaw tightened. "Do you know who I am?" "Dylan Kessler, Kessler Development Group. Property owner." I paused, let the moment settle. "Husband of someone else's wife." The air changed, shifted. His expression went from anger to something else, calculation mixed with fear. "What did you say?" "You heard me." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't. Must be a different Dylan Kessler who keeps meeting my wife at this building. Different SUV in the parking lot every Tuesday and Thursday. Different person who was eye-contacting her at that rooftop party last weekend like you two were sharing some private joke." He said nothing, just stared, and I could see him running scenarios in his head, trying to figure out what I knew, what I could prove, what I might do. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, my voice steady and calm. Professional. "I'm filing this report. Your variance hearing is next month. These violations will be part of the public record. Anyone looking into your project will see them, including potential buyers, including your investors, including anyone who does even basic due diligence." "You're threatening me." "I'm doing my job. The fact that it affects you personally is just unfortunate timing." I closed my tablet case. "Although, to be fair, you did make it personal first. You just didn't expect the other person to notice. I could report you for harassment." "Go ahead. Everything I've done is by the book. Can you say the same about the permits, about the building use, about any of this?" He took another step forward, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Expensive, aggressive, the kind of scent designed to announce presence rather than invite closeness. "You have no idea what you're starting," he said quietly. "Neither do you." We stood there 2 feet apart, neither backing down. 2 men playing a game where only one of us understood the full rules. Then his phone rang, loud, intrusive. He glanced at the screen. "Mara." "Answer it," I said. "Tell her I said hi. Tell her we had a great conversation about building codes and permits and all the fascinating details of municipal regulation." He didn't answer, just stared at me with barely controlled rage, the phone continuing to ring in his hand. "You know what's interesting about buildings?" I said conversationally. "They're only as strong as their foundations. You can have the prettiest facade in the world, but if the foundation's weak, the whole thing comes down eventually." I picked up my inspection kit, just something to think about. I collected my equipment, saved my report to cloud storage, backed it up to my phone, and walked past him toward the door. "See you at the hearing," I said. He grabbed my arm as I passed, not hard, just enough to stop me. "We're not done." "Yeah," I said, looking at his hand on my arm. "We are." I pulled my arm free and walked out. I drove away without looking back. My hands were steady on the wheel, heart rate normal, no adrenaline spike, no shaking, just the calm that comes from executing a plan exactly as designed. That afternoon, I received 3 angry text messages from Mara. She'd heard from Dylan, was demanding to know what I thought I was doing, called me controlling and paranoid and vindictive. I didn't respond to the first 3. Then a fourth came through. We need to talk. Now. I waited 10 minutes, then texted back. I'm at work. Can it wait? No, it can't. Meet me at home, 6 p.m. Okay. At 6 p.m., I walked into our house to find Mara pacing in the living room, phone in hand, eyes red. What did you do? She said immediately. I did an inspection. That's my job. Don't play stupid. Dylan told me you sabotaged his project, that you found violations that weren't there. The violations were there. Expired permits. I just documented them. You did it on purpose. To hurt him, to hurt me. I did it because it's required. Buildings need inspections. Permits need to be current. That's how the system works. She threw her phone on the couch. You're doing this because you're angry about the party. About what I said? What you said was that we're in an open marriage, in front of 50 people, including Dylan. I was joking. Were you? Yes. It was a stupid joke that went too far. But you turned it into this whole thing. Did I? Or did I just start paying attention to things I should have noticed months ago? Her face went pale. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know about the warehouse, about the Tuesday and Thursday visits, about the 90-minute meetings that have nothing to do with your job. You followed me? I drove past a public property and happened to see your car. Multiple times. That's not following. That's noticing patterns. That's stalking. That's observation. There's a difference. I sat down on the arm of the couch, keeping my voice calm. You want to talk about what I did? Fine. Let's talk. But let's also talk about what you did. About the lying. About Dylan. About the last 4 months. There's nothing to talk about. Really? Because Dylan seemed to think there was plenty to talk about, right up until I mentioned his expired permits. She stared at me. You're punishing me. I'm doing my job. If that affects your personal life, maybe you should have thought about that before involving me in whatever this is. You're being cruel. I'm being honest, maybe for the first time in a while. She sat down, hard, like her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. He's going to lose everything because of you. He's going to lose everything because he didn't follow the rules. I just pointed it out. Same thing. Not even close. We sat there in silence for a minute. Then she said, What do you want from me? The truth. About what? About everything. About Dylan. About why you said what you said at that party. About what you actually want from this marriage. She looked away. I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. I stood up. Then I guess we're done talking. Caleb, wait. She reached for me, but I stepped back. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. What did you mean to happen? I don't know. I just wanted to feel something different, something exciting. Dylan made me feel important, made me feel seen. And I didn't? You made me feel safe. That's different. Is it? Yes. Safe is comfortable. Safe is boring. Safe is predictable. I nodded slowly. Okay. Well, now you get to find out what unsafe feels like. What does that mean? It means I filed that report. It means Dylan's hearing is in 3 weeks. It means everything I found is going to be public record. And it means that everyone who looks into his project, everyone who considers doing business with him, is going to see that he cuts corners and doesn't follow regulations. You're destroying him. I'm documenting code violations. He destroyed himself. She stood up, fists clenched. I won't forgive you for this. I'm not asking you to. She grabbed her purse and her keys. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. Whatever you need to do. She walked toward the door, then stopped. You used to be kind. I used to think you were honest. We were both wrong. She left. The door closed behind her with a solid click, not a slam. Somehow that felt worse. I sat in the empty living room for a long time, listening to the house settle around me. Instead, I sent my inspection report to the city planning office. Official documentation, everything by the book. Then I sent a separate email to the public hearing administrator, noting that I would be available to answer questions about the violations during the scheduled hearing. That evening, I got a call from Frank. Hey man, weird thing. Someone called asking about access logs for that warehouse you asked about. They wanted to know who'd been accessing the building. Who called? Didn't leave a name, but they sounded nervous. Wanted to know if we kept records. Do you? Not for that building. It's private access, remember? Owner wanted no monitoring. Interesting. Yeah, thought you should know. I thanked him and hung up. Dylan was panicking. That was good. Panicked people made mistakes. Saturday morning, Mara left early again. Another supposed work thing. I didn't follow her, didn't need to. Instead, I drove to the site where I'd done my inspection on Monday, the property near the warehouse. I needed to document some follow-up notes, completely routine. While I was there, I happened to notice Dylan's SUV parked at the warehouse again. And I happened to notice that the back loading dock was open, and I happened to have my camera for documentation purposes. I took photos from a public street, legal, within my rights. The photos clearly showed Dylan and Mara exiting through the loading dock, looking around nervously before getting in their separate vehicles. I uploaded the photos to my secure cloud storage, backed them up twice. Then I drove home and waited. Sunday morning, Lena texted me. Mara called. She's freaking out. Asked me if you'd talk to me about her personal life. What did you say? Told her we barely talk. She didn't believe me. Good. Caleb, whatever you're doing, it's working. She's terrified. She should be. Monday morning, I received a letter from a law firm, Dylan's lawyer, threatening legal action. I forwarded it to the city's legal department with a note explaining that I'd simply performed a routine inspection and documented violations. Everything by the book. The city's lawyers would handle it. Tuesday afternoon, Mara confronted me at home. You need to stop, she said. Stop what? Whatever you're doing. Dylan told me about the inspection, about the violations. You did that on purpose. I did my job. You're trying to ruin his business. I'm documenting code violations. If that ruins his business, maybe he shouldn't have been breaking codes. This is about us, about me. This is about expired permits and zoning compliance. Caleb, please. Her voice cracked. You're being cruel. Am I? I looked at her, really looked at her. You announced to a room full of people that we're in an open marriage. You've been seeing Dylan for 4 months. You've lied about your schedule, your meetings, your entire life, and I'm the one being cruel? She said nothing. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm going to that zoning hearing next month. I'm going to testify about the violations I found. I'm going to do my job. If Dylan's business suffers, that's his problem. If your reputation suffers because people realize you've been helping him use city property for personal meetings, that's your problem. You wouldn't. Watch me. I'll leave you. You already did. You just didn't bother telling me. She stared at me like she was seeing someone she didn't recognize. Maybe she was. I never wanted to hurt you, she said finally. Then you should have thought about that before you started lying. She left the room. 30 minutes later, she left the house with 2 suitcases. I watched her go, then I went back to planning. The zoning hearing was scheduled for 3 p.m. on the first Thursday of the month. Public forum, open attendance, official record. I arrived early and took a seat in the back row. The room filled slowly. City council members at the front table, Dylan sitting with his lawyer in the second row. A handful of residents and business owners scattered throughout. Mara wasn't there, but Lena was. She slipped into the seat next to me just before the hearing started. Moral support, she whispered. Thanks. The hearing started with standard procedure, our project overview, application details, public comment period. Dylan's lawyer spoke first, professional, polished, explained the warehouse conversion project, the economic benefits, the careful planning. Then the council chair asked about the inspection report. Mr. Rourke, she said, looking at me, you're the inspector who filed the violation report. Can you explain your findings? I stood, walked to the microphone at the center of the room. I conducted a routine compliance inspection on October 19th, I said. I found multiple expired permits for electrical and plumbing work. The permits expired 6 months ago. Work was completed without current authorization. That violates City Code Section 12-42. Were these significant violations? Any unpermitted work is significant. It affects safety certification and insurance coverage. Dylan's lawyer stood. The permits were renewed. There was just a processing delay. They weren't renewed until after my inspection, I said. 3 days after. That's not a processing delay. That's retroactive compliance. Murmurs in the room. The council chair made notes. Mr. Kessler, do you want to respond? Dylan stood. He looked tired, stressed. The permit renewal was an administrative oversight. We corrected it immediately once it was brought to our attention. After 6 months? I said. Mr. Rourke, you've made your point, the chair said. Have I? Because there's another issue. I pulled out my tablet. The building has been used for non-commercial purposes while holding a commercial-only permit. That's also a violation. What non-commercial purposes? The chair asked. Residential occupancy, furniture, personal items, overnight stays. Dylan's lawyer interrupted. That's speculation. It's documentation. I have photos from my inspection, time-stamped, official record. I held up the tablet, showing the photos of the furnished upstairs unit. The building was being used as a residence before residential permits were approved, I continued. That's zoning fraud. The room got very quiet. Mr. Kessler, the chair said. Dylan stood there, face red, jaw tight. Those items were temporary, storage. Storage that included a bed with fresh sheets, a stocked kitchen, personal toiletries. This is harassment, Dylan said. His voice was too loud, too defensive. This is a public hearing, I said calmly, and I'm providing testimony about violations I personally observed. The council members were whispering among themselves. Then the chair said, We're going to need additional review time. This hearing is continued for 30 days. Mr. Kessler, you'll need to provide documentation that all violations have been corrected and that the building has been used in accordance with existing permits. Dylan's lawyer tried to object. The chair cut him off. 30 days. Next case. I returned to my seat. Lena squeezed my arm. Dylan turned and looked at me across the room. His expression was pure rage, but there was something else underneath. Fear. The hearing ended. People filed out. Dylan left quickly through a side door, his lawyer following. I waited until the room was mostly empty, then walked out with Lena. That was brutal, she said. That was necessary. What happens now? Now he has to prove he's been following the rules, and we both know he hasn't. Mara's going to lose her mind. Probably. We walked to the parking lot. Lena stopped at her car. You know this doesn't undo what she did, right? I know. So what was the point? The point, I said, was making sure she understands that actions have consequences, that you can't just lie to people and humiliate them and expect nothing to happen. Is it working? Ask me in 30 days. But I didn't have to wait 30 days. The next morning, I received an email from Dylan's lawyer. Settlement offer. He'd withdraw the zoning application if I agreed to remove my testimony from the public record. I declined. The morning after that, Mara called. We need to talk, she said. So talk. Not on the phone. Can you meet me? Where? The house. 1 hour. I arrived to find Mara sitting in the living room, eyes red, makeup smeared. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. I'm leaving, she said, moving out permanently. Divorce papers will be filed next week. Okay. That's it? Okay? What do you want me to say? I don't know. Something. Anything. She wiped her eyes. You destroyed Dylan's business. You humiliated me in front of everyone at that hearing. You turned my own sister against me. I didn't turn Lena against you. You did that yourself. By making one mistake? By making the same mistake for 4 months and thinking I was too stupid to notice. She looked away. I loved him. Past tense? He blamed me for the hearing. Said I brought you into his life. Said it was my fault his project got delayed. She laughed, bitter. Turns out he's exactly like every other guy. Everything's fine until things get complicated. Sorry to hear that. No, you're not. You're right, I'm not. She stood. I hope you're happy. You got your revenge. Did I? Didn't you? I looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman I'd spent 8 years with. This stranger who'd lied to my face and expected me to just accept it. I didn't want revenge, I said. I wanted you to understand what you did, to feel what I felt, to know that your choices had consequences. Well, congratulations. Mission accomplished. She walked past me toward the door, stopped, turned back. For what it's worth, she said. I'm sorry. I know you don't believe me, but I am. For what? For cheating? For lying? For humiliating me? Or just for getting caught? She didn't answer. Just opened the door and left. I stood in the empty house, listening to her car drive away. My phone buzzed, text from Lena. How'd it go? She's moving out, filing for divorce. Are you okay? I thought about that for a moment. Was I okay? Yeah, I typed back. I think I am. Because here's what Mara never understood. This wasn't about winning or losing. It wasn't about revenge in the way she thought. It was about making sure that when she looked back on this, when she told her version of the story to friends and family and whoever came next, she'd have to include the part where her choices caught up with her, where the person she'd dismissed and underestimated and humiliated turned out to be paying closer attention than she'd ever imagined, where the foundation she'd been standing on, built on lies and carelessness and arrogance, collapsed exactly the way it was always going to. I'm a building inspector. It's what I do. I find structural problems before they become catastrophic failures. I just happened to find one in my own life. And I handled it the same way I handle everything else, by the book, by the numbers, with precision and patience and absolutely no mercy. 3 weeks later, Dylan's zoning application was formally denied. The violations couldn't be explained away, the building sat empty. His business took the hit exactly like I'd known it would. Mara moved in with a friend. We communicated only through lawyers. Lena and I had coffee once a week. Just coffee, nothing more. But it was nice having someone who understood what had happened without needing it explained. Frank called to tell me he'd heard the story through his network. Said I'd handled it better than most people would have. I didn't tell him I'd spent months planning every step. That I'd known exactly where to apply pressure and when. That I'd used my job and my knowledge and my patience like surgical instruments. Some things you keep to yourself. I went back to work. Back to inspecting buildings and checking foundations and making sure structures could support the weight they claimed they could handle. It's a good job. Honest work. And every time I sign off on a project, every time I approve a permit or document a violation, I remember what I learned from all this. That truth is structural. That lies are corrosive. That if you build something on a faulty foundation, eventually someone's going to notice. And when they do, the whole thing comes down.